We work throughout Columbia County, and our mission is to bring people together to conserve, care for, and enjoy the land. And one of the ways we do that is through our public conservation areas, like Ooms. We have 10 properties throughout the county, and this one in particular is open grassland, a big pond, and here we're managing for grassland birds. And so today, based on the description, hopefully you're all aware that's what we're going to be talking about. And we have Ben Nickley from the Berkshire Bird Observatory who's here to help us identify those birds that we're going to be talking about. And the hope is for this first part is really to talk about what's going on here, the sort of status of grassland birds and birds in general in terms of conservation status. And then part two, which is on Thursday, which I think some of you have signed up for, we'll be talking more about soil health and as it relates to grassland birds and grassland management. And so today is more sort of big picture. We're going to look for birds. If you see birds, you want to know what they are, yell it out. Ben will tell you what it is. Most likely.
I'll try.
Yeah. So Ben, I don't know if you want to say a few words about your organization.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Heidi, for inviting me to talk with your group. So I'm the director of Berkshire Bird Observatory over across the state line. I know we don't cross that line as much as they want to, but so I study birds. I study their migration. I catch them with mist nets and I band them. So I was up at 5 in the morning doing that today, and I do that every day during the spring and fall. So if anyone's interested in seeing birds in the hand, get in touch with me. Berkshire Bird Observatory. We're on Instagram, berkshirebirds.org. That's our website, and I have some cards if people want. I can give you my contact in that. But anyway, yeah. So one of our projects is monitoring migration of songbirds. Another one of our big projects is a kestrel nest box project. So kestrels are little pocket falcons. They're amazing birds of prey, and they are grassland birds and birds of open landscapes, agricultural landscapes, and things like that. And unfortunately, in the Northeast, they've declined about 70% in the last 50 or so years. So steep declines, and we're not really sure why. So I'm putting out nest boxes for kestrels because they'll use them, they're cavity nesters, to help support them and provide a nesting structure, which is often limiting their populations, but also monitoring those boxes so we can learn which boxes get used, which ones have eggs, how many, and which ones are successful in fledging chicks. And then I can look at different landscape features to try to understand what they're using in our region. So most of my boxes are in South Berkshire County, but I do have some in New York State, in Columbia County, and in Dutchess County, thanks to organizations like CLC that are hosting these boxes. So this is a big collaborative project that I do with many other nonprofits, private landowners, and so I'm really happy that Columbia Land Conservancy is partnering with us on this. So we have a box here for kestrels, and I think we'll probably walk past it and see it. And we have a box that, is it over mountain? Over mountain. I was like, is it under mountain or is it over mountain? It's over mountain. Okay, because I have to get over the mountain from Berkshire County to get there. Okay, got it. Yeah. So that's one of the grassland birds that I'm working, to try to recover. But our grassland birds are unfortunately all sort of having a tough time. Grassland birds as a guild have declined more than any other guild of birds in North America, and we've lost about 3 billion birds in North America since, I don't know, since they started surveying this stuff, several decades ago. So it's concerning, and especially for grassland birds. And so many of these species need big open tracts of land. They're area sensitive. And so places like Ooms are vital, crucial, very important, big, it's managed for grassland, and it can support a whole host of species. So hopefully as we walk around, I can talk more about grassland birds and management practices that can support them alongside agriculture. And hopefully we can find some birds too. Binoculars help. You all have them in your backpacks, right? But feel free to ask me any questions. I don't want to blab too much right now. But.
Yeah, how big is big enough? What do we mean?
That's a great question. So 10 acres is kind of minimum patch size for many of our grassland birds, but really bigger is better. And property lines don't matter so much, right? So if your property is 5 acres of grassland, but your neighbor's got a bunch and whatever, and there's open around you, that could work to potentially support grassland birds. Some of our grassland birds really like 25, 30 bigger, even way bigger. And places like this, how big is the open grassland? Like 150 or plus acres?
Yeah, it's about, the whole property is 180. The pond is about 25 to 30.
Yeah.
And then the rest is primarily open grassland. There's a couple of pockets of forest. So we say it's about 125 to 50.
Yeah. So that when you get that big, you have the potential to have like grasshopper sparrows and things that are very area sensitive and huge swaths of open area. Yeah.
So would a pond be a part of that 10 acres that a kestrel might want?
Oh, for kestrel, well, I mean, they're not using the pond as habitat, right? So you can take that out. You can subtract that. But what's interesting for many of these grassland bird species, open areas in the surrounding the grassland are important, and those could even be areas they can't use, like a parking lot or something. Some of them are just sensitive in their habitat selection process. They're going to avoid just like trees and forested areas when they're zoning in and thinking about where am I going to stop down. And then they focus, and find a patch that meets their requirements at a finer scale. So in ecology, scale matters a lot. But yeah.
Isn't their primary diet grasshoppers?
For what? Kestrels? Yeah, kestrels are thought to eat about 80% invertebrates, animal prey.
So there's a decline in insects.
Absolutely. So the insect decline is thought to play a role in the decline of kestrels. There was an article in the New York Times actually this summer talking about kestrel declines and how perplexing they are, really. But one of the main things that they think might be contributing to that is decline in insects. So what causes a decline in insects?
Blood samples.
Yeah, pesticide, big agricultural practices that do monoculture crops, but diverse grasslands like this host a whole lot of insects, and grasshoppers and things like that. I'm not an entomologist, but yeah, that's another reason they're important. They're great for insects and insect diversity.
Does a field being affect the grassland birds?
Yeah, so hold that question. We're going to
It
start
does.
walking and
It
we'll
does.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Great question.
So we're gonna say, up around the pond and off into the field. And I'm leaving us. I'm not leaving. No, I'm leaving.
Yeah. Ben. Hi.
I just want to mention that, one of the things, one of the ways that we're utilizing this site is for public recreation, obviously. And so we have, we obviously have some people fishing. We do kayak programs here. Jen, who's our education coordinator, helps organize that kind of thing. And so, there's a lot going on here that we can do. Really interesting topics. We'll carry on up into the field, and then we'll talk more about it. Habitat, and when we get up to the top, we'll talk a little bit about the way in which we do sort of rotational modeling so that we can try to keep it grassland as much as possible, just in the vegetation that we can do. And so, I can talk about it right now, but it's more obvious when we get to the top. But so we've segmented the property into 3 sort of zones, and we do each one every 3 years, so that it keeps the woody vegetation out, it keeps some of the foragy vegetation, like some of the goldenrod and things like that, and it allows the grasses to continue to grow. But you'll see the one that we did 3 years ago, that will be mowed this year, this fall, definitely has some more woody vegetation in it than we do on this one. Yep. So this is the most recent one, and it's definitely grass here.
And you don't have to change any kind of specific grasses or anything like that.
We could, and that's something that we want to look at. Because right now we haven't seeded these fields. They're just the grasses that were here. This property had been part of the Ooms farm, the local dairy farm, and we took ownership of it. Well, we worked with the Open Space Institute, and they helped purchase it in the early 2000s, and we took ownership of it in 2013. they changed the way we were managing it around 2014, 2015. And that management has been paying it, or not paying it, but brush hogging it in the fall. So we're waiting until after other systems generate the bring in the equipment in place. And it's, you know, a good chance that everything goes well.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, I'm keeping a list, so you guys might think I'm just texting my girlfriend or something, but I'm not. Although if she texts me, I better text back right away. You know? But, no, I'm keeping a list of the birds that I'm hearing, and there's so many. So at the ponds, you know, different habitat, you'll get different bird species. There's some good stuff in the woods here, but we're not focusing on that. Okay, this one, bobolink. So bobolink, you all know what those look like? Yeah. Some of you. It's a black and white and sort of like a cream color on the back of the head for the male. The female just looks like a brown sort of sparrow-like bird, but they're actually blackbirds. They're in the Icteridae family. But these are grassland birds. They're grassland obligate species, and they're all over here. And the male will fly up and do this fluttery flight and then just burst out in this crazy song. So I got one that started over there. I hear one distant, but if you just keep looking out, you'll see one pop up. But they're really cool birds. They're neotropical migrants coming from South America, south of the Amazon, south of Brazil. Is where they spend their winter. So they are long distance migrants, super cool, and they arrive in May, and then the males come first, and they try to set up breeding territories in big open grasslands like this. You know, at least 10 acres for bobolinks. More is better. And they like the middle of the field. So that's what I'm hearing so far. There are some other grassland birds that I'm listening for that haven't heard quite yet. But yeah, so haying. Someone asked the question like, you know, when do you cut it, right? Does it matter for grassland birds? Well, yes, it matters. It's crucially important to not hay your grasslands during the breeding season, during the nesting season, right? Because these birds nest on the ground. And if you come in and you just cut everything, then all those nests that the birds work so hard to make and all the little babies just get wiped out. So the date, sort of earliest hay date that I've read that's kind of okay is mid-July, July 15th. But if you can, and I know that the hay, the grass isn't as good as forage, it has lower protein content for some animals like dairy cows and stuff like that. It's still good for horses. But yeah, if you're trying to promote grassland birds, you really don't want to cut until after those nests have had a chance to have the babies fledge and leave the nest. And then also, if you can push it back even further, that's good because the young fledglings are still very dependent on their parents early in their lives, and so this is great habitat for them. There's a lot of cover, there's a lot of insects, so just delaying haying is actually pretty vital. And rotations are good and things like that. Yeah.
I'm curious too. So how many people have 10 acres or more of open land that they're using? Great. Okay. So.
Do you use Merlin?
Merlin's a really cool app that's developed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and it uses AI to recognize bird song and then identify them and give you lists like something singing, and it shows up on your phone. That's a kestrel. That's a bald eagle. Just zipped over. Yeah, I don't use Merlin. I don't.
I do, and there's no shame in it.
There's another eagle just flying over, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
here's a kestrel.
It's working, Ben. It's working.
Look at it. So I hope they're in the box. When I checked the box last week, there were starlings in there. Look at that.
How do you know it's a kestrel?
There's a bobolink that just came up.
What's that one that's higher?
What is the kestrel doing? I just landed on the snag right behind our nest box, which is right there. Oh my god. So cool. So how do I know it's a kestrel? Size, shape, habitat, behavior, and vocalization. It's calling. So I know right away. It's like click, 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 and I know that. But they have a very distinctive shape, pointy wings, and bent back, pointy wings, and they have a very buoyant, light, and fluttery flight. So how they move their wings, a pretty long tail, and then size. Like it's a raptor, so it's a bigger bird, bigger than a robin, but definitely like smaller than a turkey vulture. So I hope it's paired. That would be really
Is that
cool.
it at the top of the tree?
It is, yeah.
And so the box that you can see just further down in the tree line is the Kestrel box that's on the top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I brought my ladder to check it
Yeah,
after
make sure
this.
y'all post it on there.
But that is, kestrels are like an emblematic grassland bird. It's kind of like an ambassador species for grassland. So it's really cool to see them
You
here.
said that 80% of the diet is invasive?
Yeah, about 80%. So they love big juicy grasshoppers, but they have a varied diet, and they will take all. I've seen kestrels take snakes off the ground, little red-bellied snakes. Oh man, when checking my boxes when the babies are in there, I saw a baby kestrel with a starling wing hanging out of its mouth, and that's great because starlings are invasive, and they'll usurp the boxes sometimes. I saw one with a bat wing, so a kestrel kicked off a bat midair. Crazy. I mean, that's food, but that's nature. They'll hawk dragonflies out of the air. So these are like spectacular aerial acrobatic, just crazy awesome birds. For grassland birds, it's really hard to find grassland bird nests. It's notoriously tough. You have to watch the female, because she'll run around when she has chicks and she'll collect insects in her beak. So you'll see her carrying that. And then you just have to watch her, and she'll drop down kind of near it, and watch it. She'll lead you to it. But a lot of these nests are made with the grasses that you find in the field, and they'll just throw them around in a nice little cup. But they'll often tuck it in against like some forby vegetation that has overhanging cover, so they're concealed and protected. It's very hard to find, and it varies. Different species have different size nests, and they use different materials based on what's available. There's a lot of variation. But the kestrel nest is that box right there, and they're cavity nests. They don't build a nest. I put wood shavings in the bottom of the box as a nice little substrate to keep the eggs all together. So the female will go in and she'll just scrape out a little indentation in those shavings and drop eggs right in there.
You have to clean it every year?
I do, yeah. So I monitor them. I collect my data 5 times a year, see if they're used, and then in the winter I go around and I clear out all the contents and replace fresh shavings in the spring, so they're ready. If they could find tree cavities. So often there's really great grassland habitat. Well, not often. We're actually not a lot of habitat like this, but sometimes there is. And if kestrels can't find a place to stay, they might hang around and survive for the breeding season, but they won't be able to produce young. And so putting the boxes out is important to support their population.
What months do they arrive?
Kestrels are kind of earlier. They can come sort of mid-April at the earliest, but it's more like late April and early May.
And would early snowfall hurt their ability to breed or survive?
No, they're fine. They're very hardy birds, and that doesn't matter. If you have a cold snap in the late spring, that could maybe make it so the eggs don't develop, or the chicks don't survive because they nest pretty early. But if they're in a nice spot that has it's facing away from prevailing winds, like they're good. Yeah, they can deal with the cold.
A little shaving space eater.
Yeah,
If they migrate in the winter, then they go somewhere else.
they do. Sometimes you'll have a bird that might linger around, but they can't deal with snow on the ground because they're going down to the ground, and they don't have those grasshoppers around either. So most of them go to Central America or the Southeast. There's a lot of kestrels that overwinter in North Carolina, where my brother is, or Florida. I mean, there's tons of them in the winter. It's nuts. Oh, there's a yellow warbler just in those flowers, just splitting. Just sang that song right there. It's really cool. Another really pretty migratory bird coming from probably the Bahamas or something like that. Here. Just at the top on the left towards the back, some flowers. I also hear an oriole, a really bright orange Baltimore oriole in that willow. Yeah. He's in the willow tree, the taller tree in the back on the left. side near the top, kind of behind some of the leaves. And we have 54 of them up now, most of them in South Berkshire County. They need to be in nice grassland type open areas, but organic farms can work. Agricultural landscapes can potentially work. But I put them in places that have usually a bare minimum of 30 acres of good open habitat. And so this is great open habitat, big, and we just saw Tesla, no surprise, right? But they also need exposed perches to hunt from, because Teslas do a lot of hunting while they're just sitting down. And that could be on power lines, like those ones we just passed over here. They love sitting on power lines, because it's linear, it gives them access to a big swath of ground right below them. Or dead trees, like this little tree line here has a bunch of snags sticking up, and we already saw that Tesla landed right on that one before it went to the box. So those are important features. They also like sort of wetland edges, hedgerows, some shrubby areas nearby, some heterogeneity in the landscape, right? Because those areas can be just a mishmash of different cover types, different habitats, right? Because those areas can provide shelter and homes for a lot of their prey species, right? And more diversity means more prey species for them too. So, but yeah, the kestrel boxes, we mount them at 10.5 feet off the ground. We orient them away from prevailing winds, so southeast. And we've had a lot of people help us build these, right? It's not just me. Mass Wildlife has collaborated with us on this, and many volunteers have come to do it. And CLC came out with their crew to help me put this thing on. So, and it's a great spot. Not every time, it's not like every time we put a box up, we're going to get a kestrel. I try to put them in the best habitats I can, but part of my study is to know what do kestrels like, what are they using. So I need to put them in a range of different habitat types so I can learn. Otherwise, I'm biasing my study. And so there are other kestrel nest box trails, and the occupancy rate, the use rate of the boxes varies from like 10% to like 40%. So we never expect all of our boxes to be used at any given season. But I do have high hopes for this one, definitely, because it's just excellent habitat. Right now, I have, of my 54 boxes, I think I'm getting in the upper teens on ones that are occupied by kestrels, which is actually really good. Yeah.
And what else next? Like you said, this one had a starling.
Starling, yeah. So starlings are a problem for us because they're cool birds, they're smart, they're in Shakespeare's plays, whatever. And so they brought them over in what was that, the 19th century, and introduced them to Central Park. And now they've spread and they're invasive. There's lots of them. They are cavity nesters, so they usurp cavities from our native birds. So it's a problem. It is kind of a problem. But they'll get in the kestrel boxes, and if they get in there and establish, they can outcompete kestrels for the box. They can usurp the box, which actually is surprising, right? Because the kestrels are falcons. Sometimes they can fight them off. Sometimes they take them as prey. But starlings are pretty tenacious, and once they get established, they hold on. So what I do is, as I'm monitoring my boxes, I see starling nests, I just clear them out, and they'll build it again. But if you don't let them get sort of a stronghold on the box, sometimes a kestrel will come in, and that might actually be happening right here because it was a starling nest. Now the kestrel's sitting right by it, so who knows? Maybe the kestrel can start late in its breeding cycle and put eggs. But some of our boxes get bluebirds or tree swallows, and it's like a palace, right? It's so funny to see a little tree swallow in a huge cavity for a kestrel. He's just sitting there.
And for scale, so how big is that box? You said it's 10.5 feet off the ground, but
Yeah.
it's
In terms
big.
of the dimensions,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. It's big. I mean, it's like this. Another thing I wanted to mention: nest box plans. So if anyone's interested in putting up boxes for tree swallows and bluebirds and stuff, I talked to some of you about that. The Nest Watch website, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, has dimensions, placement recommendations,
Yeah, we'll send a
all
link
that
out
stuff.
after for that.
So that's a great resource. But if you're interested in hosting a kestrel box, come contact me. I'll give you my card, and we can look. I like to look at the aerial imagery, and then maybe do a site visit if that kind of checks out, and see if it might be a good fit. So get in touch because it's kind of a lot to make kestrel boxes.
Yeah.
and we make them really good.
You have a volunteer too for the box making?
We have some very dedicated volunteers that are helping. But if anyone's interested and has a woodworking shop and wants to make more boxes, then yes, please.
I think I have a resource for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Berkshire Waldorf High School.
I check them 5 times a year.
Sometime a year.
Yeah. Well, and then I clean them once. So it's every other every other week during the breeding period I check them. So I don't want to disturb them too much, but I need to know what's going on in those boxes. It's good data for me. Yeah. So I brought my ladder and I'm gonna check this one
How close
after this.
can one box be to another?
Half a mile is kind of the minimum
Wow.
distance because kestrels
Okay.
need 40 acres ish
Okay.
of open habitat and they're very territorial. So if you put, if you have one box there and then one down by the pond, it's like there's only going to be one pair of kestrels. They will kick out any other kestrels coming around.